So what happened to the dinosaurs? Remember Ken said we've got to take back the dinosaurs. Well, we know that they were formed on day 6. And we know that they are now fallen. Just like everything on this planet Earth is fallen. Not just this planet Earth, but the whole universe. I was in a Bible study the other evening, and somebody who's got converted in his 60s, and he's beginning to really understand things. And he just suddenly realized that the whole of the universe has been tainted by sin, and that's why God is going to fold it all up, and there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The dinosaurs which were not on the ark at the time of the flood ended up fossilized, and we found them today. You can go out and look for dinosaur remains, and we found them today. The question I want to ask, though, did dinosaurs and humans live at the same time? What I want to do this morning is to give you 3 pieces of what I call evidence, or 3 pieces of data that points to their living together. We know that the word dinosaur is not found in the Bible. Neither is the word cat, for that matter. All you cat lovers, including myself, there's no cats in the Bible. Doesn't matter. There's no dinosaurs in the Bible as such in terms of the word, but it describes a dinosaur in Job chapter 40. You get this chapter and give it to young children and get them to draw the type of thing that is being described here, with the huge legs and the huge body and the tail like a cedar tree. They will come up with a drawing something like a dinosaur. And this is another thing. For years and years and years, depictions of dinosaurs, they were like, the sheep with their tails dragging behind them in the fairy story and in the nursery rhymes. But now you go to museums and you see them, their tails are put so that they're sticking out behind them. And this is because they realize a balance between the neck and the head of the dinosaur and the tail. And as they walked along, they would do this. I first came across this in the 1970s. Some engineer at the University of Cambridge started to write about this. And of course, what do engineers know about paleontology? And she was proposing this, and eventually it has been accepted by the evolutionists, and that dinosaurs look like that. The description of the behemoth. There's also this petroglyph which is found, or petroglyphs in the National Bridges National Monument, that bears striking resemblance to a dinosaur, specifically a brontosaurus with a long tail, neck and a small head. There it is. Oh, you can't see it? Well, if you draw around it, that's what it looks like. And I put the two together there. This is one of my favourite petroglyphs because when you look at it, you can't really sort out what it is. But it's like brass rubbing. If you put a cloth over it and you get some crayon and rub it, you can see that you're dealing with a dinosaur. Do you know what the evolutionists say? Oh, that's a mythological beast. You show them the other petroglyphs, that's a man, that's a woman, that's a horse, that's a dog, that's a child, that's, cattle and so on. What's that? Oh, it's a mythological beast. Why? Because we know that dinosaurs and man didn't live at the same time. It doesn't matter what evidence you put before them, they'll just turn around and say no. They'll say no, humans and dinosaurs did not live at the same time. Why? Because they've got their evolutionary glasses on, and we've got to get rid of those evolutionary glasses. We've got to get them and smash them and trash them, dump the trash, as you say over here. That's what we need to do to those glasses. But I'm thankful to Philip Bell for this. It's no relation to him, but Bishop Richard Bell's tomb in Carlisle Cathedral. He was buried in 1496. And if you look carefully at that particular part of the brass which is upon his tomb, you will see that it looks like that. You can see that there are drawings of dinosaurs. And the most remarkable thing about this is that those dinosaurs are drawn with their legs beneath their bodies. And it wasn't until, when they first found dinosaurs, they started to put them together and they made them look as though their limbs were coming out of the side and not under them. And yet back in 1496, they drew them like that. Why? Because they had seen them. So this question, did dinosaurs and humans live at the same time? Well, we've looked at 3 pieces of evidence to point to the fact that they lived at the same time. And yet we read things like this. Dinosaurs are some of the most popular and familiar of all animals. No human being has ever seen one alive. And I would say that is not true. And if you read that and you accept it, you're being deceived. And this is what annoys me about the evolutionists. We need to put our trust in the Lord, because it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence into man. What about this idea that all these finches prove evolution, that you started off with a flock or a pair of finches and they changed the shape and size of their bodies and their bills to accommodate where they were living? Well, what does the Bible say about such things? The Bible states quite clearly in Genesis chapter 1, 10 times, isn't it, that plants and animals reproduce after its kind and after their kind. We are so used to this, it's very difficult for us to just, I don't have to use the word accept it, but to explain it. We know it's so. One of my favourites is this Brassica oleracea, which is a wild mustard, and you can select for leaves or stems and flowers, flower clusters, terminal buds, lateral buds, and for the stem, and look at the type of the different plants that you can get, and they're all the same. They're all Brassica oleracea. That's why usually if you don't like cabbage, you don't like cauliflower, and if you don't like cauliflower, you don't like broccoli, and if you don't like broccoli, you don't like kale. But we know that plants reproduce after their own kind, and we know that you wouldn't find such plants as these. If you want a watermelon, you don't unzip one. And you don't unzip a corn on the cob. And what about these creatures? We know that even though they're all these different breeds of rabbits, we know that they reproduce after their own kind. We cannot breed a Persian rabbit, can we? And the horses, they reproduce after their own kind. And even you can get crosses between a zebra and a donkey. This is a zonkey in this case. We know that they reproduce after their own kind. You can't find something like this, though. Yet, if you think about it, the evolutionists are actually trying to deceive you to believe that such a thing could happen. That, given enough time, almost anything can happen. Given enough time, a frog can change into a prince. The difference between that story, which is evolution, and a fairy story is the time element, because a princess gets hold of a frog, kisses it, immediately it's a prince. That's a fairy story. If you get a frog and leave it alone and let it evolve for 600 million years, it turns into a human being. That's science. What about all these dogs? We know that the origin of the domestic dog from wolves has been established, suggesting a common origin from a single gene pool for all dog populations. And I'm sure you've all heard Ken talk about this. This is important. The thing I find amazing is that we creationists have been saying this for 30, 40 years about after our own kind, about dogs being the same. And I used to be picked up about this in the 1970s and 80s by zoologists saying, no. And now they've shown it to be so. And so you can get all these different varieties of dogs. Over 400 different varieties have been bred in the last 400 years. And you can breed some fantastic dogs like this one. I believe this is quite a favorite over here in the USA, a Chinese crested dog. And this dog appeared, now you're going to have to, close your eyes because this is really frightening what I'm going to show you now. It's not a poodle, this is worse than a poodle, if you can imagine such a thing. This appeared on the 4th of July celebrations a couple of weeks ago. That is supposed to be the ugliest dog in the world, and he's now retiring. And this is the smallest dog in the world, weighs a pound in weight, and you can see he's by the side of a tin of dog food. And you can breed some fantastic different types of dogs, like these hairless Mexican dogs. But you can't breed something like this, can you? Neither can you breed something like that. There is this limit the whole time about reproducing after its own kind. We know they reproduce after their own kind. You can tell by your reaction. You know they reproduce after their own kind. If I had a bunch of evolutionists here, they would be laughing as well, because they would know they reproduce after their own kind, and they would know, I'm telling you, they would know that what they believe is not correct.